Hey guys, so I've had a few people in the comments mention about their partner being an HSP or a highly sensitive person. There's a lot of questions asking whether repairing a relationship with a highly sensitive person is different from building a relationship with someone who is non-HSP. So in today's video, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to talk about this idea of an HSP or a highly sensitive person, and breaking down how to repair and rebuild a relationship with somebody who is an HSP. So people don't think that I'm putting my own spin on this. I'm going to read out the definition of an HSP so that people can understand it a little bit more. HSP is a highly sensitive person. This is someone who deeply processes stimuli, leading to high empathy, rich inner life, but also easy overstimulation. According to this, highly sensitive personality, also known as sensory processing sensitivity, is a hereditary personality trait that is associated with a genetic component leading to deep processing and response to external stimuli. According to a slightly different definition, a highly sensitive person, or sensory processing sensitivity, which is apparently the scientific term, is someone who is more aware than others of subtleties because their brain processes information and reflects on it more deeply. They can be more easily overwhelmed, notice a lot more than others, naturally overstimulated when things are intense, complex, chaotic, or novel for a long time. And it is found to impact 20 to 30% of the population. And according to this definition, that is too many people to be classified as a disorder, but not enough to be well understood by the majority of those around. So with that being said, when it comes to building a relationship, repairing a relationship, or growing a relationship with someone who is highly sensitive, is being in a relationship really that significantly different from everyone else? One of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to these labels, usually the search for a label is some sort of validation that you are seeing a pattern. It is oftentimes self-validation in trying to find this label. And this happens throughout so many relationships, especially as relationships go through a rough patch. People can look for labels like narcissism, narcissist, bipolar, borderline personality, ADHD. They start to look for these patterns, and then they start to search for labels to that pattern that they feel like they're seeing. Now, the first thing that I want to point out is the big mistake that people make is that they oftentimes pathologize based on their feelings rather than objective, observable facts. And when I say that, the next thing that people usually say is, I've been objective about it. I know this is a fact. The truth is that when it comes to a lot of these labels or diagnoses or things like that, is that your partner's behaviors are most of the time contextual to you. You experience them and what they're like around you, and their behaviors that they have developed in dealing with you as a person. This doesn't mean that you do something wrong, but we all act to different degrees differently with different people around us. So before you jump in and say, no, I'm exactly the same, think about how differently you speak to your boss compared to your best friend. So it may not be wildly different, but it is different. You're going to use less swearing language maybe with your boss. You're going to be a little bit more open with your best friend. Maybe you have a boss and a best friend that is a crossover, but you act differently towards them than you do with your partner. Maybe you don't feel comfortable expressing things to your partner. We all act differently in different contexts. So oftentimes when we're trying to find a label for a pattern of behavior, we are very limited with what we're looking at, and we're oftentimes just trying to label our experience rather than objectively the person that we're in a relationship with. That is the biggest mistake that people make that I see over and over again. So with that being said, if you believe that you are in a relationship with someone who is a highly sensitive person, or even someone who is self-diagnosed as a highly sensitive person, I want to break down the steps that are important in order to cultivate a strong relationship with them. So the very first step is to remove the label. This is why I pointed this out earlier on. The most critical step is to remove this label of HSP. So usually this label comes with a narrative, the story that we tell ourselves. So these labels, like I said, can offer some validation for our feelings. I feel like they're sensitive in relation to other people. I feel like they become overstimulated in certain situations. But oftentimes these labels can act as a barrier to true understanding and true connection with another person. And this is usually due to what we call the actor-observer bias. So I speak about this a lot with my members and on this channel. The actor-observer bias is where we attribute our actions to external circumstances. I raised my voice because you were attacking me. I got pissed off at the waitress because she was late with my food. I did XYZ because of all of these situations around us. But when it comes to the actor-observer bias, that's when we attribute others' actions to their internal character. They snapped at the waitress because they are sensitive, right? So when we look at ourselves, we are in actor mode. When we look at other people, we're in observer mode. We blame their character rather than the contextual circumstances around. When you view someone through this lens of a label, you stop being curious about the context. You stop asking what is happening in this environment that is impacting them as an individual. And we start looking at their character. We start assuming this is just how they are. They're just a sensitive person. So in order to rebuild, reconnect a relationship with someone that you feel is highly sensitive, removing that label is really important. In order to foster that connection, you've got to drop this pathologization, but you've got to drop the diagnosis and look at the human that is in front of you. That is the very first step. The next step is to look at specific behaviors, not traits. So once you remove this label, this HSP label, whatever you want to call it, start to replace it with specific observable data. So look for the specific stimuli that affects the nervous system. So instead of they are an HSP, start to look at it differently. I feel like when lots of people are speaking at once around my partner, that they tend to go quiet. This shifts the problem away from a character flaw into something that is more manageable and objective. But this is simply your observation. This may be different from your partner's experience. So it's important to simply know that this is simply your hypothesis rather than an actual fact. You still haven't tested that hypothesis yet. And we'll talk more about this in a second. The next step after this is to start to normalize the cost of processing. So all human beings on this planet process data through their brain, right? That's our computer. And everything that we do has a cost. Not managing our emotions has a cost. Managing our emotions has a cost. Turning up for work and doing your job well has a cost. Sitting in front of a video game has a cost. Everything has a cognitive load, right? A processing cost. Everybody has a different spectrum of what costs more cognitive load and what doesn't. So oftentimes when people talk about a highly sensitive person, that can be someone who, for specific tasks or in specific environments, it costs a lot more cognitive load. And this isn't a good or bad thing, but this is everyone's experience is different. So if you think about it this way, if you know computers, you can have a really good computer, but maybe the graphics card is not efficient with a certain game. It's not that the graphics card is bad or the game is bad. It's just not its strength. So it will run the game, but maybe it will run a little bit slower on that game. But if you think about that same computer can have really fast RAM and can do video editing really well. It's simply neither good or bad, but just understanding what environments are more productive and what environments are less productive is going to be really important. So if you feel like your partner is highly sensitive in terms of emotions, in terms of environment, start to understand the fatigue that they may be experiencing. Acknowledge that processing deep emotional thoughts, feelings, or sensory input comes at some cost, just like it does for everyone. And start to ask yourself, is this environment, what is happening in this environment that may be causing more cognitive load than the normal sort of baseline? Start to look at understanding your brain and your partner's brain and start to look at an energy kind of budget, right? If you know a specific event will be highly stimulating and maybe a little bit too much, start to look at how to manage that energy and look at the possibility of recovery time for the brain to be able to recover its energy back. And the same goes for yourself. Understanding your own brain's energy budget is going to be really important to manage your own energy so that you can show up in your relationship as your best self as well. So once you start to think about these and start to normalize the cost of processing for every brain, then the next step is to start to talk to your partner and ask them questions. So rather than simply labeling them as HSP and never actually asking and understanding and get to knowing who they are, talk to them, ask them questions, be curious, rather than trying to force some diagnosis or some label. Ask and understand what is their experience, because what you may be observing or you feel like you're observing may not actually be factually true. There may be some nuance to it. It may be completely way off. Start to ask and be curious about your partner's experience. For example, I could be wrong here, but sometimes I feel like on days when you've had a lot of big conversations with your boss that maybe you feel a lot more drained than normal. And maybe when you come home, it's a little bit more difficult to deal with me and how I do things in the house, but I could be off with that. Maybe you're feeling something different. What do you think? In this way, you're showing genuine curiosity without any sort of accusations. You're opening the door to be able to be wrong and asking your partner's actual experience rather than making assumptions and letting that just run. But the next step is always to make sure you're focusing on regulating the environment. This is not just for yourself, this is also for your partner as well. When it comes to relationships, being very deliberate with the environment for the relationship is really important. People get into this idea of blame, it's my fault, it's her fault, it's his fault, whatever it is. When it comes to relationships, focusing on the third party in this, which is the relationship itself, focusing on that and the environment for that to be cultivated is really important. Managing what discussions are had and when, being able to understand that some discussions are going to take a lot of cognitive load for yourself and your partner, and being deliberate with them, being deliberate with times to reconnect, being deliberate with times to recharge, being deliberate with times to do things individually as well. The more that you start to focus on the environment for the relationship to flourish, the more you'll be able to be deliberate when it comes to rebuilding that connection. This is especially true when it comes to repairing a relationship with an ex-partner, is focus on the environment and building the environment for that dynamic, for your dynamics to grow. Then the pressure is relieved on repairing the relationship because you're both kind of focusing on the same goal. And this is something I talk to my members a lot about, is shifting away from this blame game and onto the environment. Once you're able to focus on the environment and cultivating that for you both, then it becomes a lot easier to repair the relationship moving forward. Obviously, this is a YouTube video, so I can't dig fully into it. But if you want to understand what to focus on when it comes to building a strong relationship environment and repairing a relationship, then join my Relationship Bootcamp, where you'll learn the same fundamentals that all of my members start with to start repairing their relationships from the ground up. All you have to do is click on the link in the description to grab your spot. So connection is really difficult when it comes to a nervous system that's in fight or flight mode, right? If the environment is overwhelming, no amount of trying to talk is going to help until you can settle and create a calm environment for you both. So reducing the stimuli in the environment, don't try and have a conversation in the middle of a crowded room or in front of the TV, whatever it is. Lower the lights, turn off background music, be very deliberate with the environment for yourself and for your partner. But this also is about you showing up as well, making sure that you are also, because you contribute to the environment as well in the way that you show up. If you're anxious, if you're angry, if you're falling for the actor-observer bias, you're not going to be cultivating a strong environment for your partner to be able to feel calm, feel at ease, and feel normal and able to express themselves. This is when we talk about building emotional safety in a relationship, this is exactly it. Cultivating a very strong and healthy environment for both of you to be able to open up and have conversations about how to build a relationship moving forward. But most of all, frame this idea of sensitivity as simply a signal. So sensitivity is not a weakness. Sensitivity actually has some really strong uses. It is simply a tool. So sensitivity itself is not a weakness. So don't frame it as that. People who do have a high sensitivity actually have a very high fidelity data collection. Now, I can't dig too much into this, but I want you to understand how important data is to repairing a relationship. Understanding sensitivity as high fidelity data collection is so important to repairing a relationship. So sensitivity is actually very important as a skill, and it's something you can learn from. So I'll leave you with that deeper dive video, and I'll see you over there.